What's up everybody, another beautiful day in the Dragon House, and we're back with some Mythic raid guides, and today we're taking a look at Mythic Terros. Now I'll be going over most of the mechanics, how to deal with them, and our overall tactic for this fight. Setup wise, you want 2 tanks, 5 healers, and 13 DPS. And this fight is the only full single target patchwork fight in the raid, so make sure to bring your most slappiest single target specs and builds. In low gear, the DPS check is pretty rough, but it will naturally get a lot easier as the tier progresses and you get more gear. So what's new for Terros on Mythic? Now apart from the standard numerical tuning, like everything has more health, slaps harder, meaner overlaps, all that good stuff, you have the big rock blast that you need to soak, now deals damage to everyone in the raid regardless if they're in it or not. However, if you're not in it, its damage doesn't split, so everyone takes more damage, and this also means if you try to do a hero play, haha, watch me immune this bad boy, you will wipe the entire raid, so no immune plays. Now on top of this, a new mechanic called Infused Fallout, which targets everyone in the raid, giving them a debuff. This debuff deals ticking damage and lasts until 2 debuffed players hug it out. And clearing the debuff causes everyone in the raid to take damage, and each debuff cleared spawns a circle on the ground where a spike erupts shortly after. Don't get spiked. Now Infused Fallout happens after every shattering impact, as well as following each resonating annihilation slam, the big area denial. The pizza slice. So the easiest way to deal with this is clearing multiple debuffs instantly and then a few of them staggered. So we had around 14 players, you can have between 12 and 14 players stack and clear each set of dust, and then 6 players that cleared there in a staggered fashion, including the tanks. And this is due to, well, everyone in the raid taking damage for each debuff you clear, so clearing all 20 will hurt while you have other damage going on. But clearing 14, then the rest after a few seconds is very manageable. So you want to use range DPS for these staggered clears, as it's a lot easier to stay spread in range. Now with that out of the way, let's go over the fight step by step. Now there's a few ways to deal with this fight, or mainly how to deal with the spikes or how you clear them, but also a few things you can do differently with the Mythic dust clears, and I'll cover all approaches so you can see what works best for your guilds and raid setup. Now how we managed all the spikes was simply we cleared all of them with 1 beam each time. So we had every player targeted by these small spike circles line up inside and through the big rock blast circle. Make sure they keep some space between them though, it is very easy to get stuck between 2 pillars and stand there looking all sad and stuff, and then you get a beam in the face. And it's also fine if 2 or 3 range stands outside the rock blast circle to drop their spikes to make space. Just make sure they're somewhat lined up. Then we clear all of them with the very next tank beam, and we of course had healing cooldowns for all of these, and doing so meant we mostly front load the bigger portion of the raid's damage into those moments where you clear all pillars rather than spreading it out so it possibly overlaps with Infused Fallout clears. And I remember our healers saying there's only healing to be done when we clear pillars, everything else is pretty much cake since we front loaded there. Now the opposite approach of this is of course staggering these clears, meaning you split them up either half and half, or most of them with the first tank beam, then 2-3 of them with the second tank beam. And doing it this way means way less burst damage to the raid, but more consistent damage, if you will. Now I'll link a Weakaura for this strat that you can use, which splits your spiky players for you. Now we never tried staggering it, I know some guilds have, but I think most guilds do full clear all spikes now, due to having more gear. Now overall, this fight, as with most patchwork fights, it's extremely scripted. It is always the same pattern, pull after pull after pull. So let's break down the fight. So you want a Bloodlust on pull. When you get Rock Blast, keep the big circles somewhat close to the boss so melee never loses uptime. Players targeted by the spikes either line up in a row or split, depending on which approach you're going for. As soon as the Rock Blast bursts, stack up and move a bit to the left of the Rock Blast zone, and then bait the Shattering Impact over there. When you get the Shattering Impact circle, you always want to move out to the right out of this big circle, because as it detonates, swirl spawns near or underneath players. So if you move out to the left, you bait these in the area you will go to next. So always move out to the right. Now following these swirls, you will always get Infused Fallout. So directly after the Shattering Impact has detonated, all the 14 players that's gonna clear stacks up and moves a bit to the side, and you just stay stacked. When the debuffs go out, instantly moves, you don't get spiked by the erupting bedrocks you spawn. Now I recommend getting a weakaura that tells you when you're cleared, preferably one with sound, because sometimes you can't see anything of this fight due to his big old arms. So rather than looking if there's a spike underneath you, you just hear the weakaura sound and you start running. And I'll link one in the descriptions. Move on. So 14 players instantly clear debuffs, then the remaining players clears theirs when the raid is a bit more stable, usually just after a few seconds. Now following the dust, it starts over. You get rock blast with pillars, into shattering impact, into swirls, into new dust, and then you get your first annihilation slam. Pizza slice! So for this, you want to have a gate going from in front of the boss and out to the left. A few seconds before annihilation, have everyone in the raid move close to the gateway to bait and make sure that the annihilation hits that location. Then everyone gates away when it starts to cast. Now shortly after you land, you will get new infused fallout dust on the raid. We did exactly the same with this dust as we do with all the other 14 players, then the rest staggered. However, most guilds now are clearing all 20 players during that transition instead. So after every annihilation, they always clear 20 players. And this is mostly because there's no other damage going on there, so it's very safe to do that. So for this, everyone in the raid takes the gateway, and when you land, you just stack until dust spawn and then run out. And then phase 1 starts again. Regardless of approach, the fight restarts following this dust. The only difference is you'll get more and more spikes to clear, which means the raid will take more and more ticking raid damage from the spikes, as well as more damage taken whenever you clear spikes, and there's more of them. Big raid! But yeah, this is really a numbers fight, both DPS and healing wise, being able to out heal all the raid damage from the spike and dust clears and finishing boss before you run out of space. Now to extend the fight just a little bit, if you get the last annihilation so that the room is completely filled with stuff on the ground, you want the raid to stand near an old pizza slice and move into it at the last second before the new annihilation hits. And then you want to pop whatever defensive cooldowns you have and raid cooldowns you might have and just live for as long as possible. And you'll be able to extend it for a few seconds at least. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Mythic Terros. Let me know what you think about this fight on Mythic. Now if you have any questions at all about this encounter, hit me up in the comments or become a patron or Twitch sub and get access to the Stankie Discord, where you can get help with anything raiding related. I'm also streaming all of my raid progression on Twitch, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, so make sure to check that out. Stankie Gaming. Don't forget the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Ha ha!